and his passion for teaching. It is my pleasure to introduce our speaker today, Mr. Sunshine himself, Dr. Pepper.
Bishop Chobe, Headmaster Dealey, members of the board, faculty, family, friends, thank you. And congratulations to the graduating class of 2016. While at some point, I might possibly miss you. No, that's a subjunctive. Currently, I do not like you very much. For some time, I've been looking forward to your absence last week so I could finally escape Creighton's incessant attempts at hugging me and be able to retreat to my cave of solitude, where I could listen to Beethoven, reread Lord of the Rings, and meditate on the glories of the Green Bay Packers, undisturbed. Instead, I had to write this speech. So congratulations, you all managed to disrupt my hopeful solace, and most likely this was an act of retribution on your part for the seventh seal. Even worse, this past week was the actual object of my distress, writing the speech itself. Graduation speeches are supposed to dispense optimism, reassure you about the future, since this day is an achievement, marking a happy yet somewhat anxious transition in your life. It is difficult for anyone to write such a speech without inevitably drifting into some banal cliche, such as "you are the future." Of course this is the case. Unless seven angels begin to blow their seven trumpets right now, there is an earthly future and you are in it. It is doubly difficult for me to write such a speech. I'm not known for being optimistic, reassuring, or any other adjective that connotes some form of positivity. I am the walking antithesis of Mr. Dealey's happy and healthy motto. Nevertheless, after a steady and healthy consumption of Primus, Diet Coke, and Totino's pizza rolls, this was the best I could do. And I'm sure if it's boring, Jordan Douglas and Lucy Cook will provide me with a glower of disdain. But even if it's less than you expected, I will keep it shorter than Q. Clichés aside, most of you are entering what many psychologists do consider a new phase of your life, emerging adulthood. Coined by Jeffrey Arnett in 2000, emerging adulthood is a new demographic, one that's predominantly seen in developed countries where going to college, the delaying of marriage, and delaying of family has become the norm. Spanning the ages of 18 to 25, this period is characterized by instability, exploration. You are no longer an adolescent, but you're not yet mentally or socially an adult yet. You are no longer under your parents' direct supervision, but you're not autonomous from them either. Even though you are legally an adult, you are relatively safeguarded from adult concerns. A good example of this, doing laundry. Adults typically do not buy 30 or more pairs of underwear. Many of you will do this so you can avoid doing laundry and just have your parents do it when you come home. If you haven't thought of that already, you're welcome. The biggest challenge you will face during this period is discerning your identity. This is the most characteristic feature of emerging adulthood. Questions such as, who am I? What will I do with my life? These will permeate this time period. One reason this time period has become an ever-growing challenge is the premium society has placed on creating and sustaining a subjective sense of freedom. We are told to create or invent our identity on a seemingly tabula rasa of the self. I alone define who I am. I alone determine who I will be. I alone create my destiny. In short, we are told in the Nietzschean sense to be our own God, to create and define ourselves ex nihilo. Moreover, in college you will encounter, to extend Hunter Ricketts' analogy, a greater buffet of ideas, people, and opportunities than JV2 could ever possibly offer. This golden corral of options will be at first exhilarating as you get a taste of all the offerings, but the lack of limits and direction quickly can become overwhelming, and the pressure to create yourself can become unbearable. What I want to offer you today is a challenge to this notion of creating or inventing yourself, so that college is less stressful, the options more clear. Rather than viewing the formation of your identity as a creation, I suggest understanding it as a discovery. While this may seem like a subtle shift in words, the difference radically impacts where you look for yourself. So where do we look for ourselves? For St. Augustine, St. Augustine, we ultimately discover ourselves through God and through our neighbor. We discover ourselves through something beyond the subjective self. In the opening paragraph of his Confessions, Augustine says to God and informs us, the audience, "Because you have made us for yourself, our heart is restless until it rests in you." Augustine was certainly restless throughout his youth and early adulthood. During the early years of his search, Augustine only looked to himself, and what Augustine found was alienation and despair. In his attempt to create himself, he in turn lost himself and spent a good deal of his youth getting into trouble and being a part of a heretical group. What Augustine eventually discovered in the search is that it required something beyond his subjective, narcissistic self. What he discovered within was that he was made in the image of God. Because that image was carved into human nature, and because God is Trinitarian, and thus by nature relational, humans can only truly find themselves in someone else. At the depths of the I lies the you. It was not through his goals, his work, or material possessions that Augustine found himself. It was through particular friends, teachers, family, and ultimately God that allowed Augustine to see who he was and put his soul to rest. This was certainly the case for myself. There have been various people who have shaped my identity over the years, and since this is graduation, it seems most appropriate that I give an example from one of my former teachers. Mr. Cellini was my orchestra teacher from 5th grade through senior year of high school. Mr. Cellini was a spastic little man of Bohemian heritage who would throw rosin and jocular insults at us when we misbehaved or clearly did not practice. Because my parents had little money, I could not own my own bass, and because both of them had to work, I was not able to transport a bass home with me over the weekend so I could practice. Almost every Friday, Mr. Cellini would drive the bass and me home, and then he would pick us up again on Monday. He did this until my junior year of high school, and since our drive was about 30 minutes long, he would use that time to teach me more about music and music theory, or just simply see how I was doing. Mr. Cellini did not have to do this. He was not getting paid for it. He did it because he cared about music and about others. Because of Mr. Cellini, I was able to go eventually to Luther College with a music scholarship. Ultimately, though, Mr. Cellini taught me about who I need to be and what it means to be a good human. He taught me what it meant to care for others and be dedicated to others. He lived out his true identity and modeled the image of God within himself. I would not have been able to discover who I am or what type of teacher I wanted to be without Mr. Cellini. As you prepare to make your next transition in life, look to God and all those people in your life, friends, families, teachers, who manifest what it means to be human. Find your Mr. Cellini. By being open to them, you will find who you truly are. So class of 2016, do not try to create yourself. Discover yourself by looking outside of yourself. On behalf of the faculty, we thank you for continually helping us to look outside of ourselves and to discover who we are. As I end this speech, I can now possibly like you once again and maybe miss you. This is still in the subjunctive, and Neil, this certainly does not mean you can have a pool party at my house. You can have a pool. Congratulations again to you all. You deserved it. May God bless you and your families. And like Bob Page always says, go Knights.